leader of an organization, how are you not close with the stars of the organization? And the dilemma right now in the WNBA is that the star players, the Asias, the Stewies, the Sabrinas, the Caitlin Clarks, they don't have a good enough relationship with the leader. The Nafisas, they don't have a good enough relationship with Cathy Engelbert. She came in and she wants all the credit for everything, but there's not enough communication between the leader and between the players. And now you got a revolt. Now everybody in the W is like, hold on, we want you up out of there. But I think the best thing I heard is, how can you negotiate if you don't communicate? And the dilemma is there's not even a negotiation, a quality negotiation right now between the players and between the W, because there's not quality communication right now between the players and between the executives for the W.
Adam Silver just did exactly what Fever fans wanted. He fired Cathy Engelbert. Remember, this is the commissioner who said Caitlin Clark should just be grateful. Now she's out, tossed aside like old news. This whole thing changes everything for the league, and honestly, it feels like it's finally catching fire. But before we dive deeper, seriously, do you think this firing should have happened way sooner?
You need to resign, period. Reason I say that, doggy, is because when a player, any player, but especially one of that magnitude, attacks you publicly like that, that weak-ass statement Commissioner Engelbert gave is not good enough. And I'm gonna say it, it was a weak-ass statement. Could you imagine somebody directing comments and criticisms at you, taking conversations they've had with you directly and telling the world what you said? And did you see that statement Commissioner Engelbert gave? She basically provided no defense of herself. I don't have the statement directly in front of me, y'all.
Mischaracterization.
A mischaracterization.
She was disheartened.
I'm disheartened at the mischaracterization.
Can you believe it? So here we go. Cathy Engelbert is gone. She's fired, booted, literally tossed out of her office chair, and straight into unemployment. And all because she just couldn't stop running her mouth about Caitlin Clark.
Well, let me clarify first, because it's proxy season, right? No CEO do you just put the base pay in there. You put their bonus, you put their stock options, you put everything. Caitlin has the ability to make up to $500,000 just in WNBA wages this year. So of course they're just looking at a base which is collectively bargained. And actually it's low because she's a #1 pick. She'll make a little more than that. But she also has millions and millions of dollars of endorsements. She's actually, because she declared to become pro, her endorsements are higher in dollar value. She has a global platform now, not just a US platform. So she's going to do just fine, as will the top players in the league, as every league does. Also, there's comparisons to the men. Those men's leagues are 75 to 120 years old. We're tipping off our 28th season. I would say if you looked at them 28 seasons in, we're further ahead. But I realize we still have a lot of work to do. And it's all...
Remember all that talk about the ecosystem? This is the same commissioner who actually thought saying Clark should be on her knees, thanking the league, was a smart move. The same one who let players get away with throwing elbows, let the refs ignore blatant fouls, and then seemed surprised when fans got mad about the game. Well, the NBA finally had enough. Adam Silver, the big boss, stepped in and made the call. And honestly, it was way overdue. Think about it, when you have players like Napheesa Collier publicly calling you out, Sophie Cunningham saying you're delusional, Lexi Hull backing them up, and an entire fan base ready to boycott, there's just no way you can hold on to your job. Let's rewind for a second.
Thank you all for your time today. I have prepared a statement that I would like to make before taking any questions. All right. So first of all, I'd like to congratulate the Mercury for advancing to the finals. And I want to be clear, this conversation is not about winning or losing. It's about something much bigger. The real threat to our league isn't money. It isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office. Since I've been in the league, you've heard the constant concerns about officiating, and it has now reached levels of inconsistency that plague our sport and undermine the integrity in which it operates.
What really blew this whole thing up? Napheesa Collier sat down in her exit interview and absolutely lit into Engelbert. She said WNBA leadership is the absolute worst in professional sports. Plus, she revealed Engelbert dismisses injuries, ignores players, and just pretends everything's fine, even when the refereeing is a total joke. But then came the real bombshell. Engelbert apparently told her that Caitlin Clark should actually be grateful the WNBA exists, because without it, Clark would have nothing. Wow.
At Unrivaled this past February, I sat across from Cathy and asked how she planned to address the officiating issues in our league. Her response was, well, only the losers complain about the refs. I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them.
Seriously, Cathy. Caitlin Clark was selling out arenas back in college. She already had huge sponsorships before she even left Iowa. She pulled in more viewers for a single college game than some WNBA playoff games ever get. And your brilliant idea is to tell her she should be grateful? That's just ridiculous. It's like telling Taylor Swift she should be thankful to a karaoke bar for letting her sing.
She's lucky she's got a $16 million deal because of the platform the WNBA gave her. It is the single dumbest thing ever said by a sports commissioner in American sports.
Look, that arrogance is why Adam Silver had no choice. Seriously, Caitlin Clark basically saved the WNBA from just fading away. She absolutely exploded attendance, ratings, sponsorships. Even media deals. She brought in tons of new fans, droves of them. But instead of protecting her, instead of making her the star, Engelbert let her get absolutely clobbered game after game. Then she fined anyone who dared complain about the officiating. Even Fever head coach Stephanie White got hit with a fine just for agreeing with Cheryl Reeve. That's how messed up it got. Coaches couldn't speak up, players couldn't speak up, and fans who pointed out the obvious nonsense, they got labeled as toxic. So, Adam Silver stepped in. And listen, this isn't just about Clark. This is about the entire league spiraling because Engelbert couldn't connect with her players. She couldn't manage the referees. And she treated the WNBA like some cold, corporate boardroom instead of a basketball league. What's crazy is, fans have been screaming all season about inconsistent officiating. Players have been vocal about the extreme physicality, and what was Engelbert's response? We have the best refs in the world. Really? The best in the world? These are the same refs who couldn't call a flagrant foul if someone got body slammed through the scorer's table. Becky Hammond even said it herself, if the NBA had this kind of chaos, players would be throwing punches every single night. But in the WNBA, it's just allowed to slide. Why? Because, apparently, drama is good for the league. Yeah, drama's great until your biggest star is laid out on the floor, clutching her ribs while ratings plummet. Drama's great until players like Collier are sidelined with ankle injuries. Drama's great until fans just say, I'm done, and stop showing up altogether. And that's exactly what started to happen. Ratings dipped for non-Clark games. Attendance outside of Fever games stayed flat. Fans stopped tuning into matchups without her. But Engelbert just kept saying everything was fine. That's why Silver pulled the trigger. Because the WNBA was handed a golden goose in Caitlin Clark. And instead of protecting it, Engelbert practically roasted it over an open fire. Now, let's talk about the timing. Some might argue Silver waited too long. Others will say he moved fast. Here's my take. He moved right when the league was on the brink of imploding. You can't have multiple star players going viral, openly blasting your commissioner. You can't have MVPs and all-stars calling your leadership negligent. And you definitely can't have Caitlin Clark's massive fan base threatening to stop watching. This firing isn't just about punishing Engelbert, it's absolutely about saving the WNBA. Because, let's be real, the NBA doesn't really want to admit it, but Clark is their biggest moneymaker. She's the reason networks agreed to that huge media rights deal. She's the reason advertisers suddenly care. She's why seats are actually full. Without her, the WNBA goes back to begging ESPN2 for a Tuesday night slot. and Engelbert actually had the nerve to belittle her. That's why she's out of a job. But let's not give Silver too much credit, either. He didn't just wake up and realize Engelbert was bad at this. Players and fans have been shouting about it for months. No. This firing happened because real money was on the line. The NBA saw sponsorships slipping away. They saw fans threatening boycotts, and they saw rival leagues like Unrivaled gaining serious traction. If Clark had ever said, "You know what, I'm done with this league," it would have been a death blow. Silver just couldn't let it get that far. So Cathy's gone. Now the big question is, who replaces her? This is where things get super tricky. The league doesn't just need a business person. It needs someone who genuinely understands basketball, someone who understands players, and someone who can actually build relationships. Because the next commissioner can't just be focused on cutting media deals. They need to restore trust. They need to make players feel valued, not ignored. They need to make fans feel respected, not dismissed. And honestly, that's a huge challenge. Engelbert left behind a total mess. We're talking angry players, disillusioned fans, refs with zero accountability, and a league office that cared more about PR spin than actual reality. Whoever steps in next absolutely has to start by fixing the officiating. Because until that's sorted out, nothing else truly matters. What's more, this firing, make no mistake, it's all about Caitlin Clark. She's the center of this storm. How she was treated on the court, how she was dismissed off it, and her enormous importance to the league are the exact reasons Silver finally took action. And here's the crazy irony. Engelbert thought Clark needed the WNBA more than the WNBA needed her. Turns out it was the exact opposite. The league desperately needed Clark, and now it has to prove it values her before she decides she's better off somewhere else. So where does this leave us? A commissioner fired in the middle of a huge scandal. A fan base that's furious, but also kind of hopeful. A league scrambling to fix its reputation. And a superstar in Caitlin Clark, who for the first time all season, might actually feel like the adults in the room are finally taking her seriously. But don't think for a second this fixes everything. Firing Engelbert is just step one. There's still a massive mountain of problems. Inconsistent officiating, unfair discipline, terrible communication with players, and a culture of fines instead of true accountability. The new commissioner has to flip that script, and fast. And just one last thing before we move on to the next part. Did you notice how fast Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull jumped in to back Napheesa Collier? That wasn't just random. That was a coordinated revolt. The players smelled weakness at the top, and they absolutely pounced. And honestly, good for them, because without that pressure, without that public firestorm, Silver might have just let Engelbert limp along. Instead, she's out. And the WNBA just changed forever. So here's where things really get interesting. Cathy Engelbert is gone, but the fallout, that's just started. Let's be totally clear. Adam Silver didn't fire her because he suddenly cared about the players. He fired her because she utterly embarrassed the league. When you have Napheesa Collier, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hull all going viral for ripping into the commissioner, that's a problem you just can't PR your way out of. Silver had to protect the NBA's investment. Remember, this isn't only about women's basketball. The WNBA's media rights are directly tied to the NBA. Silver had networks ready for billion-dollar deals. And when Engelbert made those incredibly tone-deaf comments about Clark needing to be grateful, she put the NBA's leverage at serious risk. You simply don't mess with the golden goose. Now let's talk about Clark again, because everything circles back to her. This is a player in her second year as a pro. She's not a rookie anymore. She's already brought the fever back to relevance. She's already shattered ratings record. She's already the face of the league, whether other players want to admit it or not. And what did Engelbert do? She dismissed Clark's impact. She dismissed her injuries. She treated her like some pawn in her little sustainability game. That's not leadership. That's pure sabotage. And Collier exposed it perfectly. She told us Engelbert literally said, "Only losers complain about the refs." So all the Fever fans complaining, losers. Coaches like Stephanie White wanting consistency, losers. Players getting hacked every single night, losers. That was Engelbert's mindset. And then she doubled down, claiming Clark's endorsements only exist because of the WNBA. Give me a break. Clark had national sponsors before she ever stepped foot on a WNBA court. She was the most marketable college athlete since Zion Williamson. She sold out arenas coast to coast. The league needed her. It was never the other way around. And that arrogance, that complete inability to see reality, is why she's unemployed today. Here's where Adam Silver played it smart. He didn't just let Engelbert quietly step down, he fired her. He made it crystal clear that the NBA had lost all confidence in her leadership. That's super important, because it sends a huge message to the players. The league office isn't untouchable anymore. If you speak up, you can actually make a change. Collier proved it, Sophie proved it, Lexi proved it. The pressure worked, but let's not kid ourselves. The problems aren't suddenly solved. The WNBA still has a massive officiating issue. Fans aren't blind. They see the inconsistent whistles, the favoritism, the targeting, and firing Engelbert doesn't magically fix any of that. The new commissioner has to step in and completely overhaul the system. Full-time referees, real accountability, total transparency, otherwise nothing will change. And honestly, the refs have become the biggest story of the season. More than Clark's scoring, more than Boston's dominance, more than Reese's drama. Every week, fans are talking about blown calls, unfair ejections, and questionable suspensions. That tells you everything about how bad the product got under Engelbert. Now let's zoom out for a sec. The WNBA had this golden moment handed right to them. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Aaliyah Boston, Paige Booker's coming soon. The spotlight was finally here, but instead of building on it, Engelbert fumbled it. Ratings are dipping outside of Clark's games. Players are frustrated, fans are angry, and rival leagues, like Unrivaled, they can smell blood in the water. Silver knew it. That's why he made his move now. Because if Clark ever said, "I'm done," if she ever bolted for Unrivaled, it would be absolutely over. Imagine 1 million viewers tuning in to watch her outside the WNBA. The NBA just couldn't let that happen. So Engelbert is gone, and now everyone's asking, who comes next? Here's my take. The next commissioner has to do 3 crucial things. First, fix officiating immediately. No excuses, no spin. Players need to know they won't get hacked to death without a whistle. Fans need to know they're watching basketball, not some UFC match. Second, value the stars. Clark, Reese, Boston, they are the product. Protect them, market them, and stop pretending the league is bigger than them. It's not. Without stars, there's no league. Third, build trust with players. No more fines for telling the truth. No more dismissing injuries. No more arrogance. The commissioner has to be visible, approachable, and truly care about the people who make the league run. Because here's the harsh reality. The WNBA simply can't afford another Engelbert. They barely survived this one. Let's also talk about the fans. Because Fever fans, especially, have been absolutely fuming all season. They watched their superstar get targeted. They watched refs ignore blatant fouls. They watched their coach get fined just for speaking up. And now, finally, they're seeing some justice. But it's still not enough. Fans want consistency. They want They want to know that when they spend their money and their time watching games, they're not just watching some rigged show. And if the league can't deliver that, fans will walk away. Look, we've already seen it. Non-Clark games draw pitiful ratings, half-empty arenas, social media silent. Fans aren't loyal to the WNBA logo. They're loyal to the players. And if the league keeps mistreating those players, fans will just follow them elsewhere. So Adam Silver better have a solid plan. Because firing Engelbert is just step 1. But step 2 is making sure the next commissioner doesn't repeat her mistakes. Let's also be real here. Engelbert's corporate style was never ever a fit. She was a Deloitte executive, not a basketball mind. She knew how to talk money, but she didn't know how to talk to players. She secured deals, sure, but at what cost? You can land $1 billion rights deal, but if your actual product is unwatchable, it just doesn't matter. That's the huge paradox of Engelbert's time. On paper, she grew the league. In reality, she alienated the very people who make the league matter. And that's exactly why she's gone. Now, before I wrap this whole thing up, let's circle back one last time to Caitlin Clark. Because make no mistake, this firing is totally her. She didn't even have to say a word. Other players carried the torch, but everyone knows the real story. Protecting Clark is protecting the league. Losing her would be losing absolutely everything. So in a strange way, Engelbert was right. Clark is the center, but she was dead wrong about who should be grateful. Clark doesn't need the WNBA. The WNBA desperately needs Clark. And Adam Silver just proved that by firing his commissioner. So Cathy Engelbert is out. Adam Silver pulled the trigger. And the WNBA just changed forever. But here's the real question. Will the next commissioner actually fix this mess, or are we just going to get more of the same?